coming towards crunch time in Spec-5 World Tour with just 2 rounds left in Season 17. We find ourselves at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, aka Mosport, for the Spec-5 World Tour at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, sponsored by Esport Team Racer. That's the look at the track and the weather. 45 minutes of racing ahead of us on a very lovely, partly cloudy day with a tiny bit of wind coming from the east-southeast. This is a very historic but also very high average speed track. David Haynes here with Reese Gardner, Michael Derby in the production as HJBC brings you live coverage of the penultimate round of this season of Spec-5 World Tour.
Absolutely. What a fantastic track for us to go to here, David. I'm a huge fan of Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Mosport, of course, to everyone who cares. This place hasn't had its layout changed once over the entire course of its existence. It was widened in the 90s, and that's about it as far as changes to the track go. It remains the same track that opened in the late 1950s, early 1960s, I believe. And it is honestly an absolute hoot in these cars. You carry so much speed through the corners. You'll be picking up slipstream most of the way around the lap. There's only really one heavy braking zone down here at the Moss hairpin as well. So all of that combines to create a recipe for good racing if you only leave it in the oven for long enough.
Yeah, so at 2.5 miles long, it's very high average speed, like you say, with just that one braking zone. Even at the end of the Mario Andretti straightaway here, you don't really brake in these cars. You just sort of turn in and slowly bleed off the speed through the sequence of final corners. Turn 1's near flat out, and then turns 2 and 3, you're really just flowing the momentum. So with a high average speed, slipstreaming is high in these cars, and also fuel consumption could be relatively high in this 45-minute race where everyone's going to need to make one required pit stop. They're about to get into 15 minutes of qualifying, and that could be very interesting as well.
Certainly could. We're already seeing the kind of racing that we'll likely see over the course of the 45 minutes to come. Currently in practice, Michael Chase leading the way on a 131.5, and I'm looking down the field and I'm not seeing much, if any, trace of our championship leader, which is certainly going to be interesting for this one.
Yeah, 25 drivers present, and none of them are Club do Brasil. So this could be interesting.
Certainly could. It's a big opportunity for points here late in the season, but of course you have to balance that with the realization that there are 3 drop rounds in this series. We'll obviously go through the championship standings when the time is appropriate, but yeah, this is certainly going to be a good opportunity for someone other than our championship leader to take the win here today.
So I'm trying to picture the geography in my head. If the wind's coming from the east, that is in fact a tailwind on the Andretti straight, isn't it? Ish.
Yeah, honestly, I forget the actual orientation of this track. I believe the Andretti Straight is running along the northern side of the circuit, running from west to east. Yeah.
I'm looking this up right now as we head into qualifying. It's a 15-minute session where drivers are allowed 4 timed laps. At racetracks that are more like 3.5 or 4 miles long, that can be a challenge for these cars and their speeds. But here, with high average speeds and a lap length underneath 2.5 miles, they will not struggle to get an outlap and 4 flying laps into 15 minutes. While the name we've said a lot of the championship leader is not here, the name we haven't said much of, Andrew Gilliland, makes an appearance. At one point a couple of years ago, one of the youngest drivers that I knew on iRacing. He's got to be at least 14 now, though. Andrew Gilliland, previously an open class champion of the Spec-5 World Tour.
And this is the first time I've seen him, so this will be a nice learning experience for me. Keeping an eye out for his practice time here. He was a bit low down on pace. He was a second off the pace that Michael Chase set in practice, but we're not going to be entirely sure of his ultimate pace until he starts setting these laps in qualifying. So we'll be following along with him, and we'll see what he can do coming through these last 3 corners that decrease in radius, decrease in speed by increments. And it's going to be one of those places where you're going to see quite a bit of high passing going as he completes the run out onto the start-finish straight and begins his lap.
Yeah, he sure does. So we're about to get an idea of qualifying form with 13 minutes left. There's a handful of drivers going around beginning their first flying laps. Andrew Gilliland, one of them. My timing picks up 3 sectors, so you've got to get a bit around the lap before you know exactly what's going on. But for Gilliland, you've got those really quick sweeping corners where if the tyres aren't all there, you push out a little bit wide and then you touch the grass, and then you can end up in the wall or losing an incredible amount of time. So the precision with the track limits through the first 3 or 4 corners of the lap is important. Precision with the track limits also quite important going over moss there, a little bit of a tabletop section where you don't get great visibility of it till you're already barreling into it. Gilliland heads down straight away with the throttle absolutely pinned for a long time here.
Yeah, I think this is already one of the tracks on iRacing with the highest amount of throttle usage on the roadside, and in an MX-5 that number certainly goes up. Look at him just tapping the brakes. He's balancing the brakes and the throttle through the third last corner there, and coming up through to turn 10. Minimum speed through there is 105 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. So that just goes to show you the pace that they're carrying around this circuit. Gilliland's first lap time at 133.5. That is good enough for third, but we're starting to see those times come in. Current pole sitter being John Miller, and Rui Coimbra slotting himself into P2. Our top open class driver is Logan Fry, 132.8.
Now 8 drivers with qualifying times, now 9 drivers with qualifying times. Andy Kosick's first lap didn't count, so he's been around for a lap, but the track limits bit him somewhere. Now everyone rakes it up a little higher on lap number 2. This being a short lap probably shouldn't stress the tyres so much and they could keep pushing, whereas we've seen on the really long laps, drivers will take maybe 1 banker lap, put new tyres on, and then do another 2 flying laps rather than try to do 4 flying laps. Is that one of the places the track limits are an issue? Odyssey Adams through the final corner and onto the pit straight. Doesn't register a time, and he might have overstepped somewhere else, but it definitely looked like he got close through the final corner as well.
Yeah, this scan of Motorsport dates from before tarmac runoffs were added at various places around the track, so it's just grass beyond the curbs here. You don't want to go beyond them at any point, otherwise you will get that dreaded 1X that will invalidate your lap time. Logan Fry popping himself up to 2nd overall. That is very impressive for the open class driver. Up to a 132.2, but John Miller increasing the pace up at the front there. First driver to get into the 131s in qualifying. For context, our top practice time was Michael Chase, 131.514. That is the time that they're all chasing here.
A couple more quick times come in, so Lee Martin moves himself to 4th for the moment. Ray Lombardi, no time yet. That might be about to change. He has a bit of a weave on the front straight for whatever that means and whatever that's worth. And his time doesn't seem to do anything. Eugenio Pellicci out on track. Actually, Lombardi's one of those drivers who loves to wait until late in the session, so maybe he's only just completed his outlap and to get into his first flying lap. Pellicci goes to 3rd, so it's still John Miller up top. Sean Hayes in second. But for Pollicci, that was his first flying lap. He's got some more in the bank to still give it a go compared to some of the other drivers like John Miller, currently provisional pole.
Yeah, and Pollicci will be able to potentially get beyond the bare minimum of the gap back to Logan Fry there. There's only 1,000th of a second separating them on the timesheets at the moment. So Pollicci will undoubtedly be gaining a little bit more here. Miller coming up to the end of the lap there. There's pit entry on the outside of the exit of the second last corner. You're going to be seeing drivers carrying the throttle through there to complete their pit stops here, one of which will need to be completed throughout this race. Miller did not improve the lap time on that particular lap, but he is staying out for the full 4 laps here. Rui Coimbra getting another time in to bring himself closer to the 1:31 second bracket, and we'll see what he can do to improve on this final lap. He is being very aggressive into the corners here, which is what you need here at Motorsport. You know, you're carrying so much speed through these corners, it's all about how much speed you carry into them mostly.
I'm looking too deep into the reflection there and trying to work out exactly what it's reflecting. And Rui Coimbra might have looked too deep into the apex of Moss Corner, so I don't think he had that all in control. Eugenio Pollicci crosses the line 3,000ths short of pole, so it's 0.00 gap between first and second as Eugenio Pollicci improves his spot, and that's what's bumped Rui Coimbra here down into third. Coimbra's first sector missing a little bit of time. We're about to see the second sector also missing about half a second. I don't think Rui Coimbra is going to improve on this lap.
Yeah, it's an old surface on this scan, and so there's, well, he's going to take the opportunity to practice pit entry. That's very useful there. But it's a very rough surface that eats tyres for breakfast, lunch, and tea. Forget Tim Hortons. Does it put
gravy and cheese curds on it?
I believe it may. We are a little far away from Quebec at the moment. We are in southern Ontario for the time being. But you know, I guess a few Timbits and a coffee with some fresh rubber is a nice breakfast for this track.
I'm led to believe they all eat poutine. It's just a matter of how sincere they get with the French pronunciation, or if they get a little lackadaisical with it. Eugenio Pollicci lost a tiny bit of time in the middle sector. He's going to do a bit of mowing in the final sector, and that might even invalidate his 4th lap potentially here. Some other drivers out there with laps to use. Mark Kruger, Mike Oswalt, Jake DeGrand, Greg Mack, and even Mitchell Peak's about to complete one. JDG is our poster boy for today, after I had a good chat with him yesterday.
Yeah, indeed. You had to talk with him about the hand controls that he uses, and yeah, it's amazing to see him out there. You know, sim racing, one of the most wonderful things about it is there's multiple ways that you can control a car. It's not as restrictive or expensive as it would be to get alternative controls set up in a real life race car. So it brings a great opportunity for people like Jake DeGrand to get out there and have a lob, as it were. Let's see what he can do to improve here. Well, he's going to try and improve on his pit entry strategy here.
Yeah, so here's Geordie Fike. This is going to be his last lap. Oh, he's using all of the track and then a little bit there. It's out of turn 2, which kind of becomes the first real corner of the lap. And then turn 3 is so long. You see he's right up against the white line, but on the limiter grip the whole way around there. Yes, indeed. This is a lovely, flowing, old-school circuit. Hosted the Formula One Canadian Grand Prix in the 60s and 70s before Mont-Tremblant and then the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve took over the running. And yeah, if you think it's amazing seeing these cars flow around this circuit, try ground effect F1 cars. Just incredible. Well,
Let's see what Geordie Fike can do here on this final lap. Mitchell Peake has put his third lap in, and that's put him up to P12 in the number 56. 0.5 off provisional pole. That's a very good lap from John Miller. But we're still waiting for Michael Folds and Lincoln Fox, two of our pace setters here in the championship, to get themselves up there. Geordie Fike not able to improve on his final lap there. So now we'll see if Michael Chase can put himself up any further here, up to 4th place, and he's starting his final lap there. He's only 88 thousandths of a second behind Rui Coimbra's time.
I think I see any start from pit lane penalties after Mid-Ohio a week ago. There was some license points and warnings and such, but no big penalties. So here's Mark Kruger. Still got a couple of laps in his back pocket. So this one and another. That could be useful.
Certainly could. Out of the final corner comes Mark. And we'll see the time here, 134.3. So he lost quite a bit of time on that lap. Cutting all the way to the inside of the first corner there. That's what I'm noticing. The fastest laps from these guys tend to be coming around lap 2, maybe lap 3. The tyres are not lasting that full distance and bringing their best out for those 3rd and 4th laps.
Yeah, there goes Oswald on his 3rd lap, 1/10 short of a PB. So definitely was quicker on the previous lap. Elevation change through turn 2, I've got to imagine, is actually incredibly intimidating. Having driven, say, the roller coaster at VIR, the turn 2 here looks perhaps even more unsighted, and the racetrack dropping away from you just as you're trying to navigate it.
And rises up and over the hill and then back down again through Moss, which is named for, of course, Sterling Moss, the guy who actually suggested the final design of that corner. Used to just be a straight up 180-degree hairpin, but Moss suggested that second section of it that tightens up into a right angle, sort of not so much flick, but more of a hard right, and I think we're very grateful for his input. It certainly brings quite a bit of character to that section of the circuit.
Mike Oswald's going to be one of the last lap times that we see from this qualifying session, with less than a minute remaining. He's going through the final corner, knowing that his previous lap was a 10th down. This is sort of give it all type opportunity, and it's even a 10th slower again. So it peaked on lap 2 and then dropped away a 10th and then dropped away another 10th. He'll remain in 13th. Greg Mack, I think, will run out of time, and that'll be everyone. So 23 drivers setting qualifying times from 25 drivers, and time about to run out on qualifying before we go racing in Spec-5 World Tour at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, sponsored by Esports Team Racer.
Indeed. It's interesting to see that Michael Folds and Lincoln Fox have not taken to the track in qualifying. Folds set a time in practice. Lincoln Fox did not. So, yeah, interesting goings on there. If they both take to the grid, it's going to be a potential last to first challenge here.
This is the grid. Take a look at these margins between pole and second place. It is 3 thousandths of a second. I've been praying for a dead heat ever since doing a little bit more research about Jerez 1997 and the three-way tie for pole there. I'm like, yeah, gee, that was incredibly improbable, because even when it's this close, you're like, them being exactly equal for pole, it just doesn't happen very often at all. But it's so close, and it bodes well for the racing. On the row behind them is Rui Coimbra and Michael Chase. Donnie Moffat is qualified 5th, with Odyssey Adams in 6th. Lee Martin's the best open class qualified driver in 7th, alongside Logan Fry in 8th. And then Sean Hayes in 9th and Kyle Genske in 10th. Ray Lombardi in 11th, and Mitchell Peake, the only Club Canada driver, and I know he's an Ontarian. Is that the word? Ontarian? As well. He's qualified 12th there for Team Esport Racer. He's sort of in the middle of the pack. I have a sneaky suspicion this might have been his pick. Mike Oswald in 13th and Andrew Gilliland 14th, Geordie Fike in 15th, and there's Mark Kruger, Andy Kosick, Gareth Brocklesby, Eric Schulhoff and Peter Rasorkas. The last couple of drivers with qualifying times are Brian Jabelski, Greg Mack and Jake DeGrand. Michael Folds and Lincoln Fox didn't qualify.
And it looks like neither of them are taking to the grid here, so we might only have 23 starters from this round. So let's keep an eye out in the dying seconds of the grid timer before they pull away behind the iRacing safety car for this full formation lap. We'll get a nice slow motion tour of Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
It's actually one of the tracks where the pace car driver knows how to book it, though, at about 60 miles an hour. There's others where pace car sort of does 45 miles an hour in a dead straight line, and you're wondering why. But no, they know how to muscle and move here at Motorsport. Let's look at the championship standings as we head to just 2 races to go in Spec-5 World Tour. So in the Pro Points, Joel Hedler, notably absent tonight, but leading the championship on 794 points ahead of Michael Folds, Michael Chase, Lincoln Fox, Michael Coates, John Miller, Odyssey Adams, Mike Oswald, Rui Coimbra and Eugenio Polici in the top 10 of Pro.
Yeah, this could be a good points opportunity for Miller there, starting on pole. Logan Fry leading the open points, and with him qualifying second in open for this round. Another good opportunity for points there. Genske trailing him by 40 points there. Only 30 points separating Lee Martin and Peter Rousselkis. Mark Kruger rounding out your top 5 with Travis Hewitt, Jake DeGrand, Rob Conahan, Frankie Sugamelli and Daniel Artuzo rounding out our top 10 in open.
And then in Mr. Clean, it's still not a lot of change after Mid-Ohio. Brian Chabelski from Joao Hedler, Mike Oswald, Lee Martin, Michael Folds, Mark Kruger, John Miller, Peter Rasorkas, Sean Hayes and Michael Chase. That's for turning up, completing the race with the minimum of incidents. So it's going to be, at this point, for anyone to usurp Jabelski, you need Jabelski to have to miss a couple of races or have a very dirty race, because you can't set a negative number of incident points hereafter to try to catch him. We're on the back straight. We worked out the geography. A wind blowing from the east is actually right to left on the back straight from the driver's perspective, because the straight is sort of north-south. The weather hasn't changed much from the end of practice and qualifying to right now. The air temp, track temp, wind speed and direction basically the same as we saw earlier.
Indeed, so crosswinds across this circuit, and maybe a slight tailwind coming down to Moss Corner. Shouldn't affect these drivers too much. The MX-5 not very sensitive to wind, but the pace car is in the pit lane, and we're getting ready for the start here. John Miller versus Eugenio Polici on the front row.
The green flag waves with the field coming out of the final corner. Michael Folds makes a pit lane start there. You can see him, but heading into turn 1 at lowish speed, but still trying to build some tyre temperature. It's near flat out through there till you rise over the crest at 2, but that doesn't stop Fry from going out wide from turn 1 through the grass. John Miller leading us through, and you've got Sean Hayes and Ray Lombardi. It's all the yellow and gold cars finding the wall in the case of Sean Hayes.
That's one of the worst places to go off, because you're already so highly loaded on the right-hand side of the car. There's nothing to save you from sliding into the wall. So Sean Hayes already with some big damage, and Folds is already going to have a car that he can pass on the first lap here as they are down to Moss for the first time. Miller has executed this start very well, and Rui Coimbra managing to snatch second place away from Eugenio Pollicci there, but Pollicci has his teammate Donnie Moffat for close company as well. I'm sure they'll try and work together to get to the front.
Yes, I managed to hallucinate the presence of Eugenio Pollicci last week, looking at Donnie Moffat, who started the season in a different livery but has now swapped into a team livery that matches Eugenio Pollicci. Moffat moves ahead of his teammate Pollicci's. We have a couple of other moves and a little bit of bump drafting heading to the end of the straight here. Mike Oswalt side by side with Andrew Gilliland. Mark Kruger was giving a bit of a push to Gilliland for a little moment there.
Just a little. First lap is complete, and it looks like maybe a little of pace lost there for Mike Oswald. A gap starting to form between the top 11 and everyone else, and I suppose you could say second to 11th and everyone else, because John Miller has already eked out a 6/7 of a second gap. It seems like Rui Coimbra was struggling a little bit on entry into the final corner, and that's the reason why he's lost that time. He's now under big pressure from Moffat.
Yeah, sure is. Just as Pollicci looked like he was maybe coming under a little bit of pressure from Michael Chase. We go through Moss again. Miller doesn't go out very wide between the two apexes. When you're really trying to get all of the time, you do, but it's a risky thing to do lap after lap in the race like this. So now, from the slowest corner, they go onto the longest straight, picking up speed, expecting to see a bit of Mazda MX-5 Cup-style bump drafting happen. And exactly how much does Rui Coimbra and Donnie Moffat close down John Miller in the tow here? Oh yeah, at least 2 or 3 tenths of a second for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Gap back down to half a second as they enter the final couple of corners. But this is the part of the circuit where Coimbra was suffering those issues at the end of lap 1. He manages to nail the entry into the final corner this time, and they will stay within slipstream range of John Miller.
Through turn 1, 23 drivers started the race on track. Michael Fold started from the pit lane. Lincoln Fox didn't start the race. And there's been no pit stops yet. Still well before you'd expect the pit window to open in the middle 15 minutes of the race or so. And we're going to find out, is this at high average speed also a high throttle percentage track? Is it high fuel burn? And there's some in the pack here that might save a fair bit. This looks like the lead has absolutely closed down, with Rui Coimbra finding enough speed to be right at John Miller's bumper.
This is certainly going to be a crucial exit from Moss for both of these drivers, with Donnie Moffat still in tow. Got Pollicci a little further back there, with Michael Chase starting to close in on him. This is a solid pack of cars, and it looks like Pollicci there was going defensive versus Chase. Battle for the lead, now closing into the penultimate turn. Both Coimbra and Moffat wondering where they can go here to try and put the pressure on Miller. That's a bit wide there for Coimbra coming out of turn 8, but he gets back online through turns 9 and 10. Just kissing the curb. Little on your way down to the start-finish line. A bit of weaving going on further back. It looks to me like that's Genski there, who's trying to defend from Mitchell Peake and Geordie Fike.
The top 3 of Open Class are right in the middle of this pack and all aligned. So Lee Martin, Logan Fry and Carl Genski. But Genski's got to hold on here because there's a couple of quick Pro Class drivers behind him that have been maybe putting him off, like Mitchell Peake, who's gained 2 spots, Geordie Fike, who's gained 4. Ross Brocklesby's gained 4, and so is Eric Schulhoff. But there's Genski running a tiny bit wide there, and perhaps some bump drafting happening between Peake and Fike could see Genski drop away from his own class leaders.
There goes Mitchell Peake up the inside at Moss. Clear overtaking opportunity there, and he gets it done at the first apex. So now he'll try and chase down Logan Fry. Our open class is still led by Lee Martin, who's, another car ahead. Still running single file for the most part. I haven't seen too much side by side here, which I think is good for the drivers who are trying to keep up with everybody else. You know, Motorsport is one of those tracks where you can run side by side through a lot of these corners and not lose very much time, but you're still going to be costing time to the drivers behind you. That is the one rule, I suppose you could say, of battling in motorsport. If you're going to make a pass, you want to get it done ASAP.
Okay, getting a bit close here between second and third. Check up behind Rui Coimbra. 2 wide, 3 wide over the crest into 2 is not what you expect to see. Chase is trying to pick off a couple of spots here as well. And suddenly, John Miller's back to a more than second lead just based on a little error from Rui Coimbra in one of the faster flowing parts of this lap.
Yeah, that turn 1 did not go well for Coimbra. He was 5/10 behind Miller on the way into the corner, but for some reason just lost the rear end a little bit, I think, on his way in. And that was a massive checkup that almost resulted in Moffat, Polici, and Chase coming together. Well, Chase got past Polici and all of that, and now he'll start to vault his way forward too. Moffat, for his troubles, has gained a little bit of front-end damage from that contact with Rui Coimbra.
This is pack number 1, and just off the tail of them is pack number 2, led by Eric Schulhoff and Mark Kruger and then Andy Kosick. So it's near enough to one unbroken train of cars for the whole field right now before any of these pit stops.
Moffat finally succeeds in getting past Coimbra for second in the meantime. We'll see what he can do to lead the charge in basically everyone behind John Miller trying to take the lead away from him. Really get a sense with these onboards here, the camber of a lot of the corners around here. Turn 2 in particular has some nice banking. You're able to carry so much speed through there. Moffat's in trouble again. Seems like carrying the speed through these fast corners is proving quite difficult for Rui. He set a great time in qualifying, but it seems like in race trim the car is struggling a little bit. Michael Chase could be looking at third here if he plays his cards right, slipstreaming down the straight.
He wants to think about it. The trouble is always that the corner at the end of the straight is not a big braking zone. So he just sits 4th place for the moment. Keeping a close eye on what the leaders are doing. I've been keeping an eye on what Michael Folds has been doing. He started from the pit lane, of course. He's got the fastest lap of the race, and he's scything his way through, including battling with Andy Kosick here. He gets a little out of shape just as Folds gets by into 17th. So starting from the pit lane, Michael Folds is only 8 seconds away from the race lead at the moment. He's working his way through this second pack. And just sort of leapfrogging a car every second lap, and the top 10 is in sight.
Certainly is. This is good stuff from Michael Folds. Well, he'll be able to gain a little bit more here on Mark Kruger. A mere 0.3 of a second separating those two, as the front of the field is down to Moss, and I'm seeing some potential moves from Logan Fry, trying to get into 7th overall, and past Kyle Genske for the open class lead. Lee Martin has fallen behind the both of them.
Yeah, so Genske's gone to the leader class, and Martin's dropped back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that might have had to do with that check up into turn 1 from Donnie Moffat a bit earlier, because that sort of created a concertina effect through the rest of the field, and that allowed a big jump from Logan Fry to get into the open class top 2, and Genske doing the same thing. They now have Odyssey Adams up ahead of them, but that is very wide for Kyle Genske, and it looks like we're going to have a change for the open class lead into turn 1 there. Logan Fry is through.
Yeah, exactly, he is, and it compresses a little further up the front of the field, so now it's the top 15 within an unbroken group behind John Miller, who's led every lap of this race so far, with the open class podium battle right smack dab in the middle of this. With Fry just sneaking ahead of Genske. Lee Martin's still sitting just behind them there.
It doesn't look like Genske wants to let go of this just yet, but he's not able to get alongside into Moss. Fry will keep the lead for now. Big checkup in the sort of middle of that front pack there. It looks like Odyssey Adams and Eugenio Polici ended up losing a lot of time from that. Oh dear. Well, that's not good. He's been in there now for 10 seconds. That only just happened.
Yeah, our only Canadian in the field on the way into Moss. Gets a lot of the apex curb in the second part, has a spin and goes nose first into the concrete.
And that's what happens. Very old school, high raised curbs on the apexes here. And you hit that one at Moss wrong. Send your car unsettled with the right-hand side in the air, and there's only one place it's going to go, and that's into the wall, unless you can recover it. So hopefully Mitchell Peake's going to be able to get back out there. But he was on the opposite side of the track from pit lane, so it's going to take a while for that tow to complete.
Fastest car on track last lap, as it's been for a number of laps in a row, is Michael Folds, who's moved to 14th. I think he was 17th when we last looked at him. So he's passed Mark Kruger, past Eric Schulhoff, and then, of course, gained a spot as Mitchell Peake crashed out. So Folds is now only 6.5 seconds away from the race lead with the fastest lap of the race, and having picked off a couple more positions. I get the sense that maybe in the top 5, they're not giving it 100% speed, but I'm not seeing them hold back. I'm not seeing John Miller trying to get Donnie Moffat to pass him and Moffat not taking it, like sometimes happens in the first half of these races.
I'm looking way down the field, and you have to go all the way down to Michael Folds to see the fastest lap of a 131.4. And drivers like Lee Martin and Mike Oswalt setting times on the 131.6s. So the pace is definitely in the midfield at the moment. John Miller being the one to punch the hole through the air for everyone else behind. His fastest lap thus far has only been a 132.1. So that tells me is it's going to be a matter of pace management for Miller up the front here. He'll be working his tyres quite hard in order to stay into the lead.
Love the long shots, because you see that it is a 14-car lead group at the moment, led this whole time by John Miller.
It's been a well-executed race by Miller. He's sure he hasn't been the outright fastest driver in the race so far, but the squabbling behind him, the checkups, the slipstreaming, the bump drafting, the lifting and coasting that drivers are doing behind, is granting him a lead that has not fallen below, I think, 4/10 the entire time.
This is going to be Mike Oswalt, because he's had a problem at Moss Corner as well. Following Andrew Gilliland, he gets in a little hot, loses the rear middle of the corner, and then he clips the curb, loops it around 360.
Oof, that's a very tough spot to be in, right at the exit, but the gap finally opens and he can get going again. Yeah, Moss is the place where you see the majority of incidents around here. It's a corner that requires commitment, but also stability. Going there too hot like he did, and that will be the rear end gone. Speaking of gone, that's a couple of positions there for Odyssey Adams. Stuck on the outside coming into turn 1, and he'll fall back to 8th. Logan Fry and Kyle Genske up another position each, 6th and 7th overall for our open class top 2.
It's partly cloudy day. The parts of the clouds have come across and dropped the track temperature just a little bit. The sun might come back out in this late afternoon. Looking at Genske as he looks at Logan Fry, and the open class leader is in 6th outright, which is normally going to be a good points haul. That's a good day for open class. There is some variability to how many points does the open class winner get? It depends on their outright position. So sometimes you win open class with 12th outright and it's a win and you outscore every other open class driver, but you don't bag a gigantic amount of points. And then there are days like today where you genuinely think that with a clean race and a good pit stop, Logan Fry or Kyle Genske could finish inside of the top 5 and really, in one race, bag a big haul of points.
Yeah, so if it's a bad day for some of the pro class drivers in the midfield, it's usually a really good day for the top drivers in the open class. Bad news if you're following Mitchell Peake's race. He's decided to retire from the race after his unfortunate incident down at Moss a few laps ago. So we won't be seeing any more of the number 56 here today.
Michael Folds into 12th place, 4.5 seconds behind the race lead. You sensing a pattern?
Certainly am. Michael Folds all season has been the main challenger to the absentee Joao Hedler, and second in the championship coming into this round. It's unclear to me why he didn't set laps in qualifying, but he's certainly giving us a good show here, just chipping away at that gap to the lead every single lap. And we're still not quite halfway through this race. We've got another couple of laps to complete before we're at that point. And speaking of...
lead.
Yeah, lead. Oh, have a look at that. Donnie Moffat going for it on John Miller. And it looks like second will be Miller's to keep for now as Moffat moves to the lead of the race. Just in time for the pit window to be open. Oh, that's very wide out of the final corner for Moffat. This could be the chance that Miller needs to get back into the lead right away. Get side by side at the apex of turn 1, but he can't carry all the speed to the outside. He does have the momentum. A little bit of contact maybe side by side. Coimbra and Chase both see an opportunity here. 2x2, Noah's arcing it through turn 2.
Oh, and then a little bit of contact just there, but Donnie Moffat finally has the race lead that he wanted. They're getting aggressive with John Miller. Michael Chase had a little bit of a touch with him. Rory Coimbra sits in third for the moment, and then, hey, Eugenio Polici fifth, Logan Fry, that open class leader, in sixth. As you've seen the leaders go side by side, it really checks up this pack heading towards the pit stop window for sure.
Yeah, the question is, when are they going to pit? Because if you're in a pack like this...
Genske's going for the class lead.
Oh yeah, here we go. That's the move there. Up into 6th overall, passing Logan Fry on the exit of Moss. Didn't look like the best of exits there for Fry, but he's picking up a little bit of side draft, it looks like, and he's maintaining the momentum.
Yeah, they're level, and when you go into this long sweeping corner at the end of the straight, either lane can win out. Sometimes around the outside can work, but it looks like Fry will lead Kyle Genske. John Miller and Rory Coimbra will go side by side, and Coimbra will just lose out.
There's a call to pit lane. Odyssey Adams, the first driver to go into the pits, and he is followed by Michael Folds.
So 2 drivers, 3 drivers.
Mark Kruger also joining him in the pit lane there as someone decided to give you a big old symphony of cylinders there. Greg Mack, the 4th driver to come into the pits on this lap. So some very interesting early calls here, and the pit stop for Michael Folds, 16.6 seconds according to my timing. And he will beat Adams out of pit lane there. Adams taking over 17 seconds to complete his stop. So now we'll see what Michael Folds will be able to do here, potentially with an undercut on the rest of the field.
Yeah, did you get a good look at it? This feels like a change left side tyres type of track with turn 1, turn 3, traction out of Moss, and then 2 of the final 3 corners. This is the lead group heading over that little crest just at the end of the straight. Donnie Moffat then cutting across John Miller's nose. Coimbra in third, and expecting to see a few more drivers out of the penultimate corner, stray wide and then into the pit entry. Geordie Fikes headed that way, and he'll be the next driver to pit from the leading pack.
Now I'm waiting to see if there's anyone behind who also goes for it. Lombardy, Rusokis, Jabelski, none of them go for it. Sean Hayes continuing to circulate out there with the damage that he got on lap 1. Got Andy Cossack for company there. And Mike Oswald doesn't go for pit lane either. So, yeah, Geordie Fike, the only one to come into the pits on this lap. And you're right, David, it looks like left side tyres only for the strategy here today. And that makes complete sense to me for exactly the reasons that you specified. Well, Fike completes his pit stop, and it's 17.3 seconds, which is, round about what we're expecting for most of them, battling for the lead, still going on at Moss. Half thought about a move there, did John Miller, but deciding to stay behind. But he did check up on the exit of Moss, and this will give the opportunity for Coimbra to move through.
This is the leading group of cars that haven't stopped, having just crossed the halfway point of this 45-minute race. We're almost 23 minutes down, 22 to go. As always, a little bit of bump drafting happening just before they need to disengage and turn into the double apex right-hander.
It was well executed by Chase. Managed to get through. Late call to the pit lane from Eugenio Polici there. And we'll see if anyone joins him in there. Gareth Brocklesby coming in behind.
Suddenly it's a bit downhill towards Polici's pit stall, and Sean Hayes also stops, so you're getting a few more. The race lead, it's Donnie Moffat with Rui Coimbra just behind. John Miller's dropped another couple of spots here, so Michael Chase into third, just as we sort of reach critical lap number in this race, towards the end of the pit window.
And going for the lead is Rui Coimbra. He was struggling a little bit in those opening laps, but it seems like in this late phase of the stint, he's got his pace sorted and he's looking comfortable.
So you've still got your 3 drivers contending for the open class win in this pack, though, that haven't stopped. Logan Fry putting the hammer down a little bit, putting Kyle Genske a tiny bit behind him, and then Andrew Gilliland between them and Lee Martin. This is side by side for the race lead. Coimbra trying to put his nose in front of Donnie Moffat again, and Michael Chase comes and pushes Coimbra, I think, solidly into the race lead by the end of the straight. They leave Donnie Moffat high and dry as Coimbra leads. Chase also tries to go round the outside here. Now, Chase won't be able to pit from that position unless he super dives in here, but it won't matter. It looks like Donnie Moffat is going to go to pits.
Again, the only driver from the lead pack to do it. This is really interesting. I would have expected basically all of them to come into the pits at the same time. Well, followed into the pits is Donnie Moffat by Eric Schulhoff and Peter Rusokis. And
did you see Moffat get a new bumper there as well as he takes left-hand side tyres? So it's fuel, it's left-hand side tyres, and a new pushing apparatus for Donnie Moffat if he's going to need it in the final 20 minutes of the race. The comparison is Michael Fold's pit stop about 16.5 seconds. Donnie Moffat's stop also about 16.5 seconds. And Folds is going to be at speed through turn 1, and then you carry a lot of speed up towards turn 2. Here comes Folds with all of that extra race pace. He's still not ahead of Donnie Moffat.
Well, Moffat still has to warm up those left side tyres, and his right side tyres will have cooled down a bit as well. Nice, hot, grippy tyres for Michael Folds. He'll sweep through at turn 3, and Moffat will catch the grass. Manages to recover it, but that is some crucial time loss there. This is going to be really interesting for Michael Folds. The undercut that he's gotten over everyone else. I think he's going to be vaulting up the field here.
It's very, very promising, isn't it? Leader goes to the pit lane and all of them follow except Lee Martin. Late decision from Lee Martin to stay out. He's checked his momentum in the penultimate corner severely. That will have cost him some time as everyone else pits in, led by Rui Coimbra, Michael Chase and John Miller. So Lee Martin wants to do something different to the two other guys in the open class just now.
Well, there we go. They all move through to their boxes. Left side tyres going on for all of them. Michael Folds at the apex of the final corner right now. I was looking at the gap that he had, and it was 16 seconds, which is about the length that a pit stop takes. Folds is going to be challenging for the lead here.
Yeah, potentially through turn 3 again, as you've seen everyone take left side tyres. You're seeing Rui Coimbra trying to put a bit of heat in them as he can. Michael Chase will be passed by turn 2. Here comes Michael Folds. It's once you get to the right-hand corner here that he should have a little bit more grip, as demonstrated a lap ago.
Did you see how late he was on the brakes there? Coimbra almost got rear-ended. Good thing the door opened to the inside, otherwise we would have seen contact. Folds, I think, is going to go for the effect. He has the effective race lead right now.
He sure does.
That's crazy. What a run through the field.
Massive. Now there's a 4-lap tyre offset, though, between himself and Rui Coimbra and Michael Chase, who've been willing to bump draft earlier, and the whole rest of this pack could form up as well. Lee Martin pits in, and we're just waiting on Ray Lombardi, Brian Jabalski, Andy Kosick at the moment, and we'll have to wait a little bit longer on Ray Lombardi and Brian Jabalski.
So Andy Kosick coming in behind Lee Martin. So yeah, we only have Lombardi and Jabalski, our two drivers, yet to make a pit stop here. Well, now Michael Folds is to the lead of the race, and weaving across the track there. I don't know if he needed to do that, but honestly, his pace has been incredible this entire race so far. I think it probably was an intentional last to first challenge here from Folds. It certainly made things interesting for us up here in the broadcast booth. And now it looks like a battle for effective second once again. Michael Chase holding on only just from Rui Coimbra, and John Miller, who started on pole. Oh no, Folds is wide. Oh, caught the grass there on the exit of turn 3. I don't know how he held on to that.
So now he's got this group lining up behind him. We'll take a look at what happened to Michael Folds. So he's using all of the track and plenty through turn 2. Then at turn 3, gets in, and see, this is always the part. The corner keeps going and you start to wash out, and he gets heaps of grass.
Well held. Yeah, that's something that I've experienced many times going through that corner. And it looks like it's put Folds in trouble here, because here comes Michael Chase with the effective race lead round the outside of turn 8. Just tapping the brakes there was Michael Folds to keep the position.
John Miller's in an awkward position out there as we're seeing the very last pit stops for this race. Ray Lombardi and Brian Jabalski. Michael Folds will come through and he will become scored the race leader right now, with Michael Chase immediately on his rear bumper. Rui Coimbra in third, while Moffat and Miller battle side by side through 1 and make a little bit of contact there. Moffat moving Miller out of the way just a little bit. Both of them stay on the racetrack as they then descend into turn 2. Odyssey in 6th, Geordie Fike in 7th, Eugenio Polici in 8th, and Gareth Brocklesby is leading open class.
Yeah, where did he come from?
The undercut left side tyres, are massive, I think, for 2 or 3 laps before you build the temperature into them and they run hot. So I think he's undercut pretty effectively here, but he's just ahead of Lee Martin and Logan Fry. And Kyle Genske, another long stop, is back there.
Certainly is. Well, big changes, big surprises in this round of Spec-5 World Tour. It's been a thoroughly entertaining race, and we've still got 14 minutes worth of it to go as Rui Coimbra now mounts an attack on Michael Chase. Chase to the inside, and it looks like trying to follow to the inside there is John Miller. But we'll see what he can do. Donnie Moffat getting through into 3rd place in the midst of all of that. And we're at the point now where, you know, when that undercut happened for Michael Folds, I thought, oh yeah, it's going to be a clear victory for him. But only for just a moment I thought that, because the slipstream's so strong, and it only takes one tiny mistake to bring the rest of the field in contact with you. Now I think we're at the point where anyone on screen right now could win this race.
Yeah, and I think with the left side tyre undercut, it's as much of a thermal thing as a wear thing. So when you put 2 new tyres on, you've got cold tyres that then get into the peak temperature range, and they're super grippy. They're perfect for 2 or 3 laps, and then they begin to get hot again. So there's a couple of laps right here where those behind Michael Folds have actually been on better tyres, but I think it starts to equalise by the last couple of laps, and I was seeing a predicted 9 more laps to go as they cross the start-finish line. Brocklesby dropping out of the open class lead.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he's in the pit lane. I think that's internet issues for Gareth Brocklesby. He disconnected from the server. Oh, that's such a shame for Brocklesby, finding himself in the lead of open class, and technical issues putting paid to that. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, so now Lee Martin leads the open class with that overcut that he attempted. He's just ahead of Gilliland and Logan Fry. Fry, his next competitor in the front of open class.
Still very much on here. Logan Fry got a bit more time to make up as we check back in with our top 4 briefly. So we'll find our way through to turn 3 again. Once again, a very wide exit, this time from Coimbra. But it's one of those corners where multiple lines are possible on the exit. You can stick to the inside all the way through, and it can be just as fast as taking the geometric racing line through that corner. What's more important is the exit of Moss here, and it looks like Michael Folds has nailed it, but not enough to keep Michael Chase out of slipstream range.
Leading group on the longest straight, and then the next group's got the open class leaders. So it's a great style of racing that Canadian Tire Motorsport Park has put on for Spec-5 World Tour. Kyle Genski's back with Ray Lombardi in the group behind that. Brian Jabelski with Mark Kruger, and then Peter Resorkis with Eric Schulhoff. There's Resorkis in front of Schulhoff. And then Sean Hayes, Mike Oswald, Greg Mack, and Andy Kosick, a group of 4 back here, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st place. And Jake DeGrand in 22nd. He was practicing yesterday with the racing line on. He says he normally races with the racing line on. I said, you'll find a second a lap if you turn it off. And he agreed, but isn't ready to take that step yet.
Of course, we all learn at our own pace, and you know, the sim gives you these tools, and it's up to you how you use them. Oh, that's very wide again.
Yeah, race leader wide and in the grass. It's like a new batting action or something. You know that if you practice it, eventually you'll be better with the proper technique, but you'll be not as good for a short amount of time while you then, you know, get used to your new superior technique and practice that one out.
Yeah, you gotta take the pain to get the gains, as it were. Gareth Brocklesby has gotten back into the server, and he's back out on the racetrack, but all the way down in 23rd place and a lap off the rest of the field, which is far from ideal for him. What's very ideal for Michael Chase is he's ahead into turn 8, but Folds has the inside through the sweeping right-hander. 9 minutes remaining in this race, and Folds will defend here. I love how much the drivers lean on each other through these last few corners. Oh no, too much leaning. They've collapsed. Donnie Moffat and Michael Chase coming together out of the final corner, and it looks like race-ending damage for Moffat.
Yeah, take a look at this again from another angle. So they lean on each other a little bit, and then out wide, Chase is on the racing line a little bit slow. Donnie Moffat carries the speed out wide and into his rear quarter.
Yeah, I don't think that Moffat was anticipating that Chase would go as deep into the final corner as he did. He had to check up on the exit, and by that point Moffat had already committed to the exit of the corner, so I don't know if there was much he could do other than slam on the brakes and potentially cause a bigger incident behind. Andrew Gilliland and Logan Fry battling over 8th place overall. Gilliland finding his way up nicely.
They're going to want Gilliland to pick a little bit of pace here, because he's got Logan Fry behind him and he's got Lee Martin, open class leader, in front of him, and he's sitting in between the battle for the win in open, which he's 100% entitled to do and race his race. But Logan Fry is thinking a slightly different, perhaps slightly larger picture.
They got to remember they got Michael Chase with them as well. Chase miraculously able to continue on from his contact with Donnie Moffat. And he has a sizable amount of visual damage to the car, but I don't think it's affecting his pace all that much.
And Polici's been off the road at the final corner and picked up a bit of damage just now as well. So he's gotten back going again, having glanced the wall. He was way off the road in the final corner.
Looks like he caught the grass on entry, and that sent him wide. We'll see it on the replay here. So Polici in the black and red number 7 at the center of your screen here. It's a nice conventional line through the 8th and 9th turns, but when he gets to turn 10, you see he just catches the grass there on entry. That sends him wide, and he just brushes up against the tire barrier and gets a few dings and dents in the left side of his car. He's fallen back to 6th place, but he's still only half a second behind Geordie Fike, so at least he'll be able to get some slipstream off of him, and they might be able to work together to get a bit closer here to the top 4. It looks like all of the pressure, all of the intensity of this race is getting to a few drivers.
Can have a move for the podium here, with Adams moving in front of Miller, but it takes a little while to sort some of these out sometimes through the tightening change of direction of the final 3 corners, where Miller tries to hold on. Adams tries to squeeze him out a little bit, and from a near unbroken train of 17 cars in the early stage of this race, it looks like we might be down in the final 5 minutes to a 1v1 between Michael Folds and Rui Coimbra.
Yeah, this is going to be a great battle. We'll see potentially a catch-up from Miller and Adams, but I don't know how likely that is with only 5 minutes on the clock. They will have to work together to catch back up, and the same deal for Geordie Fike and Eugenio Polici there behind. Lee Martin still holding on to that open class lead, and he's still amongst Gilliland and Chase. But it looks like Martin has actually gotten free of them as Michael Chase tries around the outside of Andrew Gilliland at Moss. The speed that he carries around the outside of the corner there translates into a good exit. He almost lost the position there, but like I often say, the outside line allows you to straighten up the car a bit earlier. And if you play your throttle and steering right, you can actually get a rocket of an exit.
Fair bump draft happening from Logan Fry to Michael Chase, who he's thinking could be his ticket to catching Lee Martin in the final couple of minutes now. They've also got Ray Lombardi, who was one of those last stoppers, so he'll have very fresh tyres closing in on them, and Kyle Genske following him too. They begin to sort of just slowly coagulate and form up again in these final couple of minutes. The final minutes being 4 minutes and a tiny bit of change, which is therefore definitely going to be 3 laps to go.
Well, you said at the start of the broadcast it was crunch time for the season. It's crunch time for the race now. And Rui Coimbra is practically glued to the rear bumper of Michael Folds at this point. Number 15, the man who started from the very back of the grid, finding his way through to the lead with a massive undercut on everyone else. It's one of the first drivers to come into the pit lane. Now, how long will those tyres hold up? I think that the tyres will be able to last to the end, but Rui Coimbra has left side tyres that are 4 laps fresher than Folds, so there could be some advantage here for Coimbra. Side by side for third, Adams and Miller trying to sort themselves out through the penultimate turn here. And the outside line through turn 9 becomes the inside for turn 10, so Miller gets the position as Adams finds no grip off the racing line through there and has to yield.
It's full on in the next group as well. Lee Martin's getting more fresh air than he anticipated. Andrew Gilliland was defensive into Moss, has kept Logan Fry and Michael Chase and Kyle Genske and Ray Lombardi behind. Genske made a spot, and he's looking pretty racy now as well. Down the inside of turn 2 on Logan Fry, who then washes out a little bit wide. This is looking good for Lee Martin in the open class lead. Things are still super tense for Michael Folds in the outright lead, who's had Rui Coimbra breathing down the back of his neck and will do again for the second to last time on the Andretti straight, the longest straight on the course. And they come over that final crest, and the slipstream seems so powerful once they begin to max out.
Here's a potential move. Coimbra carrying a lot of speed out of Moss. Almost contact there on the way into the third last corner here, and Coimbra having to yield for now. Lap times here, 1:31 high, and there's going to be 1:10 seconds or so when they cross the line. The white flag is out. This is going to be the last lap of Spec-5 World Tour at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And Coimbra falling back a bit from Folds. Can he mount any challenge on this final lap?
Suddenly it's more than half a second there for Coimbra behind, and just linking up with John Miller, it's Odyssey Adams who looks like maybe he can't mount a charge on this final lap as he begins to drop a handful of car lengths as well. Palici running 5th, Jordy Fike running 6th. Half a second between first and second. Expands out now out of turn 3, Quebec, towards Moss Corner. Coimbra's going to need a monumental run on the Andretti straight to take the win away, and there's just a tiny bit of traffic for them. Jake DeGron stayed on the lead lap this whole time, and I suspect he will. That's wide in the grass.
And Rui Coimbra loses second place to John Miller, our pole sitter. There will be some slipstream for Miller potentially if Jake DeGron's going too slow. He's wanting to let our leaders go here. So now it becomes a battle for second. Coimbra again stuck on the outside of turn 8. And I think the advantage might be with Miller there for second, but for Folds in the lead, the advantage has never been greater.
Yeah, from 24th on the first lap to a big undercut on the field to taking the race win In Spec-5 World Tour at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, a big win for Michael Folds. Behind him, positions constantly being argued over. John Miller ahead of Rui Coimbra and Odyssey Adams. Kalgensky passing a couple on the last lap there as Andrew Gilliland just fends off Michael Chase.
Geordie Fike gaining 9 spots in that race to round out your top 6. That was a solid drive there from Geordie. And I've got to give a shout out to Brian Jabelski as well, who started 21st and finishes 13th. And aside from them, there's been good gains from many drivers in the field, big losses for a few. Donnie Moffat will not be happy with how that race has gone for him. Started in 5th, was fighting for the lead, and ultimately that contact with Michael Chase putting him 6 laps down, classified 23rd, and well, he did make it back out onto the circuit, I think, to take the checkered flag, but that's where they end up for now.
Riddle me this. Michael Folds wins the race by being the first to pit. Lee Martin wins open class by being the very last driver to pit.
Yeah, that's the ebb and flow. That's how it works out sometimes.
Something to think about. Let's look at those results then. Michael Folds with the win and 23 positions gained ahead of John Miller, Rui Coimbra and Odyssey Adams. Then Eugenio Polici in 5th. It looks like Geordie Fike will be the best team esports racer at the track that they sponsored. And then Lee Martin with that open class win in 7th, ahead of Carl Genski in 8th. Andrew Gilliland 9th and Michael Chase 10th. Logan Fry, the class leader there, will be 3rd in open class, 11th outright, as he finishes ahead of Ray Lombardi, Brian Chabelski, Mark Kruger, Peter Rasorkas, Eric Schulhoff, Sean Hayes, Mike Oswalt, Andy Kosick, and Greg Mack in 20th. Jake DeGrand just going 1 lap down as he let the leaders go on the final straight. He wanted no part of getting into that, and he finished 21st with Gareth Brocklesby just a couple of laps down, 22nd. Donnie Moffat and Mitchell Peake retirements with damaged cars in 23rd and 24th. Lincoln Fox didn't start the race.
Well, that's the penultimate round complete here, David, and as we wait for potentially a couple of drivers to come in for a chat, I'm looking forward to the final round at Laguna Seca next week. We are going to be going for a double-length race, 90 minutes on the cards at one of the tracks that I think the MX-5 could call home.
Absolutely. It's one of the classic, it was one of the free tracks when there was far less space content in iRacing. So I think MX-5s and Laguna Seca got run together a whole lot, probably every like 4th or 5th week in rookies back in our day. Shakes, get off my lawn, etc. But yeah, it closes up both classes. Michael Folds gets a little bit closer to Joao Hedler. Lee Martin and Kyle Genski get just a little bit closer to Logan Fry, the open class leader. And we can Reese, you can speak to our open class winner.
All right, no problem. Lee Martin joining us here in the 149. Lee, you were one of the last drivers to come into the pit lane and coming through to the open class win here at Motorsport. First off, you must be happy with how that race turned out. Ultimately, finishing in the same outright position you started, but the story was much more complicated than that.
Yeah, I think I took the longest possible way to end up where I started, but it was nice to be able to finish a race. We had some bad luck this season, so this was a good one. And I think I got a little lucky. I don't know what happened to Gareth halfway through the race.
Yeah, from what we're hearing, Gareth Brocklesby had internet issues, so unfortunately had to disconnect from the server and come back in. But for you, putting I'm misreading the results there. You do still finish ahead of Kyle Genski, and the 7th place point's quite substantial there, so you'll be making some good gains here in the penultimate round.
Yeah, it's great to get the points haul. Probably not anywhere near close enough to put myself in contention for the season, but great race. I'm glad to see Kyle, and it was great running with Kyle and Logan all race, man. It was fun to have the podium group all stuck together in the top 10. Great drivers.
Yeah, with some very clean battling between you guys, which was a pleasure to watch. Next week, final round of the season, we double the race length. We're going for 90 minutes at Laguna Seca. So I guess there's going to be a lot of preparation for you going into that.
Absolutely. It's actually a track that I enjoy a lot. It can sometimes cause a lot of chaos, but ironically, the tough part can be getting home in time for an early race. So hopefully we'll race home and make it in time to race here.
All right. Well, we do hope to see you there, Lee. Is there anyone that you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, I actually want to thank Kyle and Logan for just an absolutely awesome race. It's great to run with clean drivers. Fun hanging with them, and hope to do it again next week.
Indeed. Thanks very much for joining us, Lee Martin. Congratulations on the Open Class win.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the broadcast, as always.
Well, David, it looks like we're not seeing many other drivers want to come in for a chat, so we may very well have to call it there.
Yeah, right now, no sign of race winner Michael Folds. An absolutely spectacular performance for him, and it sets up a must-see finale for season 17 of the Spec-5 World Tour. Double the race length for these cars at Laguna Seca. You'll see it here next week on HJBC. So make sure you drop us a like. Make sure you're following David Haynes here with Reese Gardner and Michael Derby. We'll see you in a week's time for the decider.